Okay, so let's look at Part B here. Now we've got book income of $101,000. Let me pull this down just a little so we can just see that one. We have book income of $101,000. This includes capital losses of $6,000. Okay, well that's a little different. We had capital gains in the first one. Now we've got capital losses. And remember, capital losses, we cannot take capital losses for tax purposes. We're probably going to carry those back to another year if we had any capital gains, or we may carry them forward. We could carry back, those 3 years forward, 5 years to help absorb capital gains in other years, but we can't take it this year. We also had a charitable contribution of $13,800. So again, we're going to have to figure out, it's a little bit closer, we're going to have to figure out how much, if any, of this charitable contribution we are allowed to take for tax purposes. And then we also have meals expense of $1,800. So it's very similar to this first one, A. However, like I said, we've got these capital losses here that are going to factor in. So again, we're going to start with our book income of 101. But we've got to figure out this charity. So again, 10%. I'm not going to write this all out. Taxable income. Before the charity, before any dividends received deduction. All right. So for our purposes, we're going to start with that 101. Remember, we're trying to figure out what our taxable income is before that in order to determine, to calculate 10% of that amount. Okay, you'll notice it's not the same. Like in this first one, it's not the same because over here, we haven't added back that $1,200. But this is what would show up on our M1 here in that reconciliation again. So this is M1. So this is just kind of a supplemental calculation that we need to do. Now, what we need to do, because that $101,000 would have included capital losses, we've got to add that back. Okay, because this, like I said, for tax purposes, we can't include that. So because it is included up here, we're going to have to add it back into the calculation. We also have those meals expenses of $1,800. All right. So we've got meals expenses of $1,800. That means half of that would not be deductible for tax purposes. All right, so we're going to have to add back as well the $900 for meals. So again, this is for capital losses. This is for meals. There. And then we're going to add back the charitable contribution. So $13,800 in order to determine. So up here, this was charity. This was 50% of meals. 50 plus 13,000. Was it 800? I lost my spot there. 800. Okay. So we're going to add all of those up and then calculate what 10% of that is. So let's get our calculator out here. Pull it over. So all right. So 121,700. That back aside. And we're going to take 10% of that, which is $12,170. Okay, so what we have here, we are allowed on our tax return to take $12,170. However, we have taken $13,800 on our financial statements. That means we've got a book tax difference there. So we figure out the difference between those two, 13,800. So again, this is for tax, this is for book. So we have a book expense that is greater than the tax expense. So let's see the difference here. Get my calculator back. Oops. Minus 13,800. $1,630 difference. Out of the way. Okay, so because we had additional expense of 13,800, I'm sorry, of 1,630 for book purposes as opposed to tax purposes, we're going to have to add, that's going to be an add back to our book income. So let's go back over here to our M1. We are going to add back our capital losses, which are 6,000. And then we're going to add back our 50% of meals. Okay. And then we are going to add back 1,630 for the difference between the charitable deduction. Okay. And then we'll add all those together. $109,530. Oops. There's our tax income. So that's part B. Okay. We will continue on with part C.